Hey guys, we are back in the 2023 Honda Civic Type R. It's about time I did a 1-year ownership update and review on this car. It's a little bit overdue. As of filming this, I have 6,422 miles on it. I have not driven it a ton, but I would like to go over my experiences and my thoughts on what's been like owning this Civic Type R. There's some things I really like about this car, but it is not perfect and there have been some road bumps along the way. So let's start off. What is this car looking like in its current form right now? I have the daily driving wheel and tire setup on here. This is a set of braid full race FF wheels, which are flow formed, 18 by 9.5, very strong, pretty lightweight, wrapped in a set of Falken Azenis FK4 60 all-season tires, 265 35 R18s, and the tires have been okay. They have developed a little bit of a flat spot if they sit for more than a day or so, which is a bit disappointing, but they iron out, they smooth out after a few miles, and they have a ton of grip, awesome in the wet, quiet on the road. We just did a road trip on this setup out to Kentucky, and they were fantastic. I also added these mud flaps, these rock guards here recently from, I think, FX3D Design. They're 3D printed. You can push them out to have as much coverage or as little coverage as you want, and they also come with a little mesh right here. And I've noticed it's kept the side of the car much cleaner. As far as other modifications, if you're not familiar with the car, I have a front resonator delete to mimic the exhaust setup of the Integra Type S. I also have an Integra Type S damper module installed on this car. So this is basically turned my Civic Type R into an Integra Type S. It rides like a Type S, it sounds like an Integra Type S. I also have the exhaust valve locked open. I have a separate video on how to do that, as well as a thread on Civic Xi on how to make that happen. So, some ownership impressions. You guys know how much I've always wanted a Civic Type R. I'm still really glad I bought this thing. It's been fantastic, it's been reliable, no issues. It is fast as hell, it's pretty efficient, it's super practical. I was able to sandwich a spare tire from a FK8 Civic Type R in the back here. Doesn't fit perfectly, but it's functional for our Michigan potholed roads. Gives me a little bit more peace of mind. It does raise the cargo area of this, and I wish Honda would come out with an integrated setup for a spare tire. They did for the FK8, and this all just fits about right for the FL5, but again, it's not factory perfect. It would be nice to have that. That said though, as a family vehicle, as a daily driver, this is awesome. I can fit my kids forward-facing and rear-facing child seats back here, and it just, there's tons of space. It's awesome. I don't mind that this is just a 4-seater. My wife enjoys it. It's quiet enough on the highway, a little bit of road noise. Awesome on the track. Holds up pretty well in stock form. The stock brake pads are fantastic. I just ordered a set of Paragon R5s for the front and R3s for the rear, so we'll see how those perform on track here soon. Let's get to some complaints. Let's get to some of the meat and potatoes here right off the bat. And most of those just have to do with the interior of the car and the tech here, or the lack thereof. Wireless charging is completely useless. This has rarely ever charged my phone. It might charge it for a couple minutes when it's first on there, but you hit one bump, you go around one turn, and it gets knocked off the element. So I mostly just honestly leave that off the majority of the time. CarPlay connectivity. Oh boy, this was my biggest complaint about this Civic Type R. CarPlay in this is terrible. It connects pretty quickly and pretty reliably, but it's very laggy. It'll freeze, it'll get all pixelated and weird, especially when using Waze. However, I found a solution, and it's not going to the dealership and getting an update. It's something that I saw on an obscure forum in a video. I can't remember the original author. I'd love to give him credit, but he made a video on how to do this in the new 11th gen Civic, and it applies to all Honda products with this infotainment. So here it is. You go into General Settings, System, Detail Information, App Manager, and you disable the in-car navigation, which takes up a bunch of RAM. You can see what apps are open here, what apps are active. And let's see, Honda Log R, 30 megabytes. Navigation, 180 megabytes, and that's disabled. So right now I have it disabled, so I can enable it. But if I want to disable it, you just disable it. And it makes your infotainment reliable, super responsive. CarPlay actually works now. It hasn't dropped once, it hasn't disconnected, it hasn't gone all pixelated. And guess what? I never used the factory nav to begin with. I don't miss it. There's just an empty pod right here where it would normally be. CarPlay is awesome now, finally. It just works. So that's been a really nice change because I was kind of getting bummed about this car's connectivity situation. It really was pretty bad. Only other major complaints are, I wish this had a heated steering wheel or heated seats. I can see why Honda did it, to keep weight down, to make it a little more simple, more of a purist driving experience. And the curb weight on this car is very impressive. Only 3,188 pounds. There's not a lot left that is that light in this size of a vehicle. It's pretty amazing what Honda was able to achieve. Wish it had a mechanical handbrake, not an electronic one. It's no fun to drive in the wintertime. It is just completely boring, and it's just the stability control system doesn't work great in the winter. It just kind of understeers everywhere. The tires are pretty wide. Snow performance on these all seasons is sketchy at best. I think if you had a set of dedicated winters, that would be the way to go. But there's not a lot of ground clearance. It's just not a winter vehicle. The shifter's freezing. There's no heated seats or heated steering wheel. I barely drove this winter because I just didn't feel like it. I spent most of the time in my BRZ. But it's so darn good the rest of the year, I really don't mind. And a lot of that has to do with this engine, this 2-liter turbo from Honda, and the 6-speed manual transmission. The torque from this motor is just awesome. It pulls great. It doesn't sound like much. It just sounds like a big vacuum cleaner. It's reasonably efficient. I've been putting 5W30 in here in the summertime for track days and running 0W20 in the winter for daily driving. It's easy to work on. Oil changes are a breeze. Hasn't burned any oil. It's a champ. I did plasti dip these wheels, so you may notice these used to be kind of a dark silver. I plasti dipped them black because I think black just suits this car very well. All of the accents, the mirrors, the spoiler, the side skirts, the front splitter, it's all black, and this kind of needed a match. I used Hyper Dip, and God, it was terrible to work with. I will never do it again. But the finish looks nice. These are pretty dirty. They're kind of covered in brake dust right now. But Hyper Dip was just so tricky to get right. It was always running. It's a little bit too thin, and it doesn't seem to be holding up very well, even though I just put this on. It's getting scratched up. It's getting chipped. Yeah, I would not recommend Hyper Dip one bit. Unfortunately, it's a pretty steep learning curve to get right, and if you do get it right, it looks nice. Like this finish in here looks pretty darn good, but getting it consistent, especially for new dippers or new users, you really have to have your technique down, and the environmental conditions have to be perfect for it to work. So I'm going to leave this on here for as long as it lasts and looks decent, but in the future I'll either get a set of wheels repainted or just use plasti dip. What else? Let's go for a drive and get some speed under us, and we'll talk about the rest of this ownership experience. My favorite things that I've done to this car are just some of the modifications. The first of which is the suspension changes. Upgrading or changing to the Integra Type S damper module made a world of difference with this Type R. It transformed it from an unpleasant and stiff and uncomfortable driving experience on road and on track to just a great suspension setup. This feels fantastic. It's tuned perfectly. It handles better on track. It's faster on track. It's more comfortable on the street. This is how you set up suspension, not what Honda did with the overactive, overly damped setup from the factory with the Type R. The factory dampers were way too firm, way too overdamped. It just bounced everywhere. It actually caused you to lose traction instead of gaining traction. I was faster around the track on this Integra Type S damper setup than I was with the Type R dampers. So I've saved that module. It's a very easy swap. The only problem is that module has been back ordered for months, and you just have to kind of put an order in and wait 3 to 4 months to get it in. It's a couple $100. It takes 10 minutes to swap out, and there's some documentation in videos and online on how to do that. So that's my favorite change that I've made to this car. Other than that, spicing up the exhaust was nice. MRT developed a front resonator delete to kind of mimic that smaller resonator removal in the Integra Type S, and it sounds good. And you can do some trickery with the fuses to open up the exhaust valve 100% of the time. The car is actually a little bit easier to drive with that exhaust valve open. It feels like the engine can breathe a little bit better on starts. So clutching out, coming out from a stop, I feel like I have a little bit more torque. And as a result, the car is easier and smoother to drive. I've been living with both engine rev matching on and off, and I'm kind of split 50-50 on whether I like it or not. I lose my skills, I lose my rev matching skills when I have it on, but the car is so good at rev matching itself and it's so smooth that I really enjoy daily driving with it. And I enjoy track driving with it because I don't have to think about it as much. That said, this car is a pleasure to rev match and drive yourself. So again, I'm 50-50. I wish it were a little bit easier to change. You have to go through about 7 different menus in the infotainment to do it, but that's okay. The performance from this car has just been awesome. I love the way it pulls, I love the way it handles. It's actually a little bit more tail happy with the Integra Type S damper module than it was before, but it's still compliant. And Plus R mode is actually usable now, whereas before it was just way too stiff. On track, it feels just about perfect. Sport mode feels great, and comfort is just exactly that. It's comfortable. I have my individual mode set up with Plus R engine, comfort steering, comfort suspension, Plus R engine sound, sport rev matching, and comfort gauges. I think those are kind of the easiest to see visually. I also disabled the active sound, which just sounded like a fake Honda motor, and that was pulling off some dash panels and unplugging the module for that. Took a little bit of work, but it was worth it. I don't have to worry about that anymore in Plus R mode. Dynamically, steering's a little bit heavy, but I like it. The only complaint that I have with it is I wish that the steering weight matched the control weight in the rest of the vehicle. For example, it'd be great if the clutch pedal had a little bit more heft to it. The shifter, let's talk about the shifter. Everyone raves about the 6-speed manual from Honda, and I gotta admit, it's great. Like, compared to everything else on the market, it's a fantastic shifter. It's got that sweet Honda snick throw. Kind of reminds me of my S2000, which is one of the best gear changes ever conceived. But I still think this is a little bit light of a throw, and as a result, it can be somewhat vague sometimes, especially when you're really hustling on track. That's why I actually really like rev matching in this car on track. So I wouldn't mind just a little bit more resistance between gates. That might be as simple as changing out bushings. So we'll see. I may play with that at some point. I don't want it to feel like a really stiff short throw shifter, but I wouldn't mind just a little bit more resistance and strength from this shifter setup. Right now it feels just a little bit too delicate for my tastes. Clutch pedal is light, there's no feel, but it's really easy to start this car off from a stoplight smoothly. It's very easy to drive. Rev matching plays into that. The 2-liter is just a nice motor. It's very easy to live with as a manual driving experience. A lot of turbo lag here. I think that's kind of charming. Not a lot of modern cars have turbo lag anymore. A few rattles in this interior and dash. They seem to work themselves out, and they're more present in the cold. When it warms up, they all seem to go away. The Bose sound system here is great. Really enjoyed living with that. It's nice to finally have a Honda product, or a model in the Honda lineup that has a decent sound system. It's great that Honda's finally bringing branded audio into their vehicles. Super bumpy road here. No complaints. This feels great. I've said it about 50 times. This diff is magic. This car's fun factor comes from how impressive it is and how well tuned and developed and engineered and calibrated it is. It's not the same fun driving experience as something like the Veloster N or the BRZ, which is just kind of a bit of a hoon, or the Elantra N. It's different. It's more engineered. It feels solid. It feels like a really high quality item. Okay, I mean, I guess people are paying $50,000 for these at this point. You can find them used, you can find them new for around that price point pretty easily these days. The days of severe markups hopefully are over. And as a $50,000 car, this is amazing. It's one of the best buys at that price point you can imagine these days. I think as one car to do it all for the enthusiast, this is one of the best vehicles out there. Something that's going to last a while, something that's going to just be a really good driver for a lot of different needs, for backroad blasts, for track work, for daily use. It's really hard to beat. In some ways, it's more engaging than a lot of other vehicles on sale today. It just kind of has that Honda magic that Honda had lost for so long. They brought it back with the Type R, with the FK8 and with the FL5. And that's something to note here, is that this isn't really that different from the FK8 Type R. It looks a little bit different. It's a little bit more refined here and there, but ultimately it's a very similar car. Even down to dimensions, engine, transmission, suspension setup, it's all very similar. The tuning has been tweaked, it's been perfected here and there, massaged. We have better tech, we have a better interior, we have a nicer looking car, I think. But again, FK8s have held their value well, and if you want to save a little bit of money, or you just can't find an FL5, that's not a bad buy either. In fact, a lot of the parts swap from FK8 to FL5, like suspension components, like spare tire. Even the spare tire cover, the mat that goes over the spare, and the FK8 pretty much fits in the FL5. It doesn't look pretty, it's not very high quality, it's kind of thin, but it could work feasibly. There are definitely some complaints that I've had with this car. Big ones were suspension and infotainment, but there are workarounds, there are solutions to those problems. And I'm happy with the solutions that I've implemented in this FL5 Type R, and this is a car that I would hold on to. I don't want to get rid of this. At first I was kind of thinking, if I can't fix the suspension issue, if I have to go to a set of coilovers, if I can't fix this CarPlay issue, if this is going to be what I have to live with, I might want to get into something else. But now that I've addressed those problems, I'm feeling a lot better about living with and owning this car. It does everything so well. It makes it better that I don't really enjoy driving it for half the year in the winter months. And honestly, it's not that bad. Yes, we have a lot of potholes here in Michigan. Yes, the roads are terrible, but these tires are so wide, they kind of roll over everything pretty well. And having a set of 18s on here definitely gives me some more peace of mind. For a little while, I was running some Continental DWS 06 Plus tires in 265 40 R18s, which was kind of an oversized tire size for this car. And it threw the speedometer off a little bit, but I actually really like that sizing on this, and I may go back to that at some point. Right now, though, I'm just terrified to rebalance or replace the tires on these wheels because I spent so much time hyper dipping them that I don't want to mess the finish up. So I'm going to keep these tires on here until they're probably worn out. A lot of people out there are tuning their Type Rs, getting some pretty impressive horsepower numbers out of them. This thing just keeps spinning in second gear. It can't put its power down with its stock 315 horsepower. I don't really see any need to add more power to this. I wouldn't really be using it on track. I, if anything, just want better cooling on track. And I think at the end of the day, this just has to stay stock for reliability purposes, for warranty purposes, and it's just not necessary to have to send out my ECU and get it hacked and basically jailbroken. So I'm going to leave this as it is for now, and pretty happy with the way the car is as it's set up. Thought about maybe getting a rear engine mount from PRL or something like that, but I don't really want to introduce more NVH into this. I would like to get the brakes sorted. We'll see how these Paragon pads feel on track. Very happy with the Michelin Cup 2 tires that I got on this car on the 19-inch wheels. So we'll spend some more time on track on those this summer, but also very soon I'm about to have a second baby boy here, and I will not have time to be tracking this car as much as I did last year. I'll be pretty busy, and this will be full of car seats. So my priorities will be changing a little bit this summer. As it sits, I think that's pretty much everything I've had to say about the FL5 Civic Type R. We've gone from church parking lot to church parking lot, and this seems like a pretty good place to wrap up the video. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that quick take on my ownership impressions in the FL5. Some good and some bad here. Like anything, I just wanted to be kind of brutally honest with you guys on my experience with this car. I'm really happy with everything that I've been able to do with this in terms of modification and parts, and just kind of figuring out little workarounds to things. So if you haven't already, go check out some of the previous videos that we filmed on this car, and if you are looking to buy one, I would highly recommend it. The Integra Type S also is a great option if you're going to be paying a little bit over MSRP for a Type R, and if you can get an Integra Type S at MSRP, overall it's a better vehicle. The only thing I don't like about the Integra Type S is the rear hatch doesn't have as much space. It doesn't have as much width to it. So it's maybe not as usable of a package, and there isn't as much room in the rear seats. The roof height is a little bit lower. But that said, overall, otherwise, the Integra Type S feels like a more cohesive, complete package. I feel like Honda held back a little bit on this Type R. They could have made it better, but because the Type S exists, they didn't, and they went in a different direction with some of the things. Like, they made it too stiff. They didn't give you as many comfort features in here as they should have, and the Integra Type S fills in a lot of those gaps, but at the same time, it left us with a Type R that really should have been a little bit better than it is. So here we are. I'm really happy with my purchase decision. I would not trade this out for a Type S, mostly just because I love owning a Type R. I always wanted a Type R, and now I have my dream Type R, and it's been fantastic. So anyway, we'll end on that note. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. It just looks so aggressive. It's so wide. These wheels look great too. I love how we spec'd this with braid. A little bit lower offset, a little bit wider, pushed out to the edge of those fenders. And I don't have to worry about rocks and dust on the side as much now with these rock guards. Not a sponsored product or anything, but these FX3D design guards are nice. You do have to put a double-sided 3M tape over here to keep this piece from peeling away from this fender area, and the rest just kind of mounts into the factory locations. You pretty much have to break/drill out the factory pieces just because they'll break out as soon as you touch them. So ran over some fresh pavement earlier today and got a lot of asphalt on the car, and as a result, these mud flaps of these rock guards saved the side of the Type R from getting plastered with fresh tar. They also make a set for the rear, which came originally with the fronts, but I haven't installed them yet. I don't think I will. I kind of like the open design in the back, and it's not like there's much to impact. All right, guys, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.